A very good evening, a warm welcome to Dan Really Likes Wine, brought to you by Pick and Pay. And welcome not to the Dan Really Likes Wine cellar. We haven't suddenly acquired some rather tasteful 1950s curtains. Instead, I find myself at Country Club Johannesburg for a very special golf day. The South African, now PGA Tour and European Tour DP World Tour players respectively, Dean Burmester and Justin Walters, have got a great cause called Birdies for Rhinos, where every time they make a birdie, they themselves chip in some money, as do some of their sponsors, for a fund that goes towards the fight against rhino poaching. It's a lovely cause. It is one that has been supported by a whole horde of top professional golfers, led by the likes of Brandon Stone and Oliver Becker, as well as a lot of celebrities, Dean Elgar and A.B. de Villiers and Jacques Callas amongst those playing today. I'm sadly still not playing golf, as my bedeviled snapped Achilles keeps me off the course, but I will be flogging some stuff at auction and hosting the evening just a little later. And doing so, I got no doubt with a big smile on my face. That will be for two reasons. One, because it's a really good cause and a lovely day with some great people, but also because I will be just off doing a show with one of my very favorite people in the wine industry and his kids who've tagged along. It's Bring Your Children to Work Day on Dan Really Likes Wine, as Kevin Arnold, who really is an icon of South African wine. And I was going to say for the better part of the last century, that might be stretching it just a touch, but a man who has contributed so much to South African wine and now finds himself reinventing his winemaking space once again with his brand new family range of wines that have just been released. And tonight we meet those wines, all three of them, for the very first time, as well as appropriately the three children, and celebrate the great Kevin Arnold, his extraordinary story, and the wine he is now delivering under his brand new label. Before we do that, though, let's have a quick look at today's wine news. Oh, this is a success story from De Toren. You might remember not that long ago, we attended the launch of the De Toren Patronus, the 805 bottles exactly they'd made of a 100% Malbec from a 2020 vintage, and that particular wine has sold out completely. It is not an inexpensive wine. It comes in that really cool wooden box with a key, and that key is important. It's a little tricky, which means you can't go and accidentally open it at 2 o'clock in the morning and you stumble into your cellar after a night celebrating a Springbok victory. So well done to the team at De Toren. They make some exceptional red wine, and their new Malbec added to that list. And I think the allocation for next year has already gone as well. Well, they dropped them a note and they might just be able to sneak you on. Then on to these, this was a really interesting tasting. This was two wines sitting together that are fairly hefty when it comes to price. On the left, the Echo of G, Giorgio della Chia, with a 2010 version of a red blend from the 4G wine space. Now, this is about 2,000 Rand or thereabouts, depending on where you get it. And I can say it was drinking delightfully at 12 years old, coming up to 13, in a really good drinking window. It's a hefty wine, although it doesn't absolutely drown out your palate. And it was just beautifully smooth and really rich. And it drank ever so slightly better than the wine on the right, but that's because the wine on the right has still got, I reckon, a decade, possibly two, until it hits its very best. That's the Takara Telos. Now, if you thought the Echo of G was expensive at 2,000 Rand, the Telos is 4,000 Rand a bottle, give or take a few Rand. So it's not something you're going to knock back on a Tuesday evening as you're watching some casual television. Well, at least not many of you will be. And it is a glorious Cabernet Sauvignon. But it's although it's there, it's still got that bit of grip to it. It's almost like a coiled spring on the palate. You can feel it's just waiting to really let itself go and turn into something magnificent. It's already something very good indeed, but give it another at least 10 years, but probably more than that. And that Takara Telos will be quite exceptional, as you will be suggesting it should be at 4,000 Rand a bottle. And then this is nowhere near 4,000 Rand a bottle. This, I think, is going to be an excellent choice for summer lunches over the next few months. We make some really good Cinsault in South Africa, and the Cravens, even if there's an Australian involved, we'll forgive them for that. Mick and Jeanette making some lovely wine. I think this is as nice as anything they make, and don't take my word for it, take that of Michael Fridjon, because this bottle was chosen by Michael over lunch at Che, the Argentine grill in Parktown last week. It was a glorious bottle, ever so slightly chilled. They served it perfectly, which is not something all restaurants get right all of the time. It is not expensive. It's got a lovely softness to it, but it doesn't lose out on substance because of that, and taken down that degree or two as the sun shines, which hopefully it will a bit more in Johannesburg this summer. This will go rather nicely with lunch. So put that one on your list of wines to dig up and try. Also on your list of wines to dig up and try, the new range from Kevin Arnold. And it was a question many people were asking when he said farewell to Waterford. What, if anything, was going to be next? Were we going to ship him off to the Global World Wine Hall of Fame and have him as a permanent exhibit in the South African section? Or would we see a little more wine to come from him? I think anybody who knows Kevin would know there was always going to be some more wine coming from a man who really does have it flowing through his blood. He's given us some of South Africa's finest wines over many, many decades. And he now, from his headquarters in Hermanus, brings us a brand new range. So to celebrate that range is not only Kevin Arnold, but he's brought the kids along with him. So let's say hello to the entire Arnold family who join us from different parts of South Africa. And I know that Robbie is joining us shortly. He's just signing for a slightly inflated golf score to maintain his handicap, and then he'll be joining us. But Nadine, Lloyd, and most importantly, Kevin, the Arnold family, welcome. And lovely to have you all on the show.
Thank you, Dan.
Great to be part of it.
Well, let's do some introductions first, Kevin, if you will. I know Robbie will be with us shortly, but give us an introduction to people who I think a lot of wine drinkers will kind of feel they know, because for many years we'd have a look at a certain bottle of wine out of Waterford and wonder who it was going to be named after this vintage. So these are the people behind these famous names. Introduce us to Lloyd and Nadine, if you will, Kevin.
Yeah, thank you, Dan. It's a real privilege on behalf of my wife, Heather, and myself. I think the journey of wine is always about 3 generations, and I've always included the children as far as possible. And now that the wheel is turned, it's a great privilege to introduce you to Nadine, our youngest, always born in those vintages which we consider to be great, in our opinion, and even better because of the children. Nadine, currently based in Cape Town, has spent her life, and all 3 children obviously grew up on wine farms in Stellenbosch, so I think Stellenbosch is in their blood through and through. Nadine is currently works with Apple in both Africa and Middle East. Lloyd, true Stellenbosch boy, left Cape Town, came back to Stellenbosch, has always been interested in wine and food, and done a couple of vintages. Lloyd's involved in water purification, a unique project through its natural habitat. And Rob, who started his own company at the age of 25, 26. Hopefully he'll join us shortly. Rob's been involved in the hospitality business, the golf business, and the wine business. So they truly deserve to have their names on the wine. And I think that's what the family is all about. It's not about us. Heather and I are extremely proud and privileged to have spent almost 50 years. We met and married in Stellenbosch. We've made wine in Stellenbosch for most of our lives. And today it's wonderful to be able to turn the clock around and just say, it's not about us, it's about our kids. So currently source these wines with a little kind of idea of ultimately one day they can carry on.
The opportunity that you have, Kevin, as a winemaker, to celebrate your family as you have done in naming family members on the different bottles, it's a really cool thing to be able to do as a winemaker. But I think it's more than just the aesthetic, more than just putting a name on the family. This speaks to how over the years, every engagement I've had with you, conversations of family have come up almost immediately. This is the heartbeat of who you are, and I've got no doubt that as the wine career has unfolded, it's been the family around you that have kept the balance, kept you going in the tougher times, allowed you to celebrate in the better ones, and that pouring yourself into wine as you've done has been only been possible with the support of those people around you.
Yeah, 100%. That's what it's all about. I think without Heather supporting me through all the different projects, it's just not the same. I think wine is a feeling rather than a thought process. And I think that's when it really comes to the fore. When you feel good, you make it from the heart, and the heart is at home. So that's where it really starts from.
The wine career, as you say, goes back almost 50 years. I'm going to take you back there in a moment. But let's jump over to the first of the kids. And Nadine, if we can kick off with you. What are the first wine memories? Was it a very lightly wooded Chardonnay with the Rice Krispies aged 3, or taking some Pinot Noir to school aged 5? Do you remember the first encounters with wine and discovering what your dad did for a living?
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Dan. Thanks for having us over this afternoon. It's a privilege to be part of the show. And I think as my dad said, we've kind of grown up in it, so we didn't have a choice whether we liked it or not. I do think the earliest memories probably date back to us as crying babies, and potentially our parents trying to just calm us down with a little shots of Sauvignon Blanc or something with the dummy. So there's been a lot of wine experiences in our life, and I think over the years it's really just been about watching an artist do something amazing. That's what I think about when I think of my dad and what he's been able to accomplish. And I think that there's just been some incredible memories along the way, and just feel incredibly lucky to be part of it.
You've grown up with someone who, for many, many South Africans, is a real hero. Some people have their posters of Springboks or footballers or cricketers up on their bedroom walls. I think my wife has still got a poster of your dad up in her office. She's one of so many fans. What about your take? We see the award-winning winemaker from outside. Give us your sense of the real person behind Kevin Arnold, who we just know as this successful and celebrity winemaker.
Yeah, I mean, that has been quite an interesting one to see. I think what we don't see is an incredibly hardworking, humble individual that's really thrown his whole life into something that he loves. And the fruits of it really show. I think we, as a family, have been able to witness that, and it's just it's kind of the persona you see behind the curtain that really kind of where the real value lies, and where we've really seen him do some amazing things. So all credit to him and what he's been able to achieve, and as he says, with the support of his of our mum and the family, it's been an amazing journey.
Lloyd, what about growing up in a wine community, growing up on wine farms, growing up with wine all around you? It sounds to me like an idyllic childhood. Just how cool was it having that as your platform to grow up and be a kid around in all these great wine farms and wine spaces?
Yeah, thanks, Dan. It literally was a situation where we had wine all around us growing up. We had the privilege of being able to grow up and live on many most iconic wine farms in South Africa. And one memory that kind of stands out for me as a youngster was I've always seen myself as head of quality control. So I had to kind of sample every wine that there was to make sure that it passed the grade. And we spent a lot of time in the Rist and Freda tasting room, with my mom being there and my dad obviously being there. And I would kind of oversee, the tasting process and all the guests coming to taste the wines. And times when they didn't finish their full glasses, the glasses would be put back on the counter. And I was literally not tall enough to put my head above the counter, but you would just see these hands stretching up every now and again and pulling the glasses down, and I'd be sampling all of them. So, a lot of the time there was a lack of memory with regards to, these situations, but it was amazing. We had such great times in these wine farms, and it's almost, it's a culmination of a beautiful story. This whole process where we've taken, and I'm sure my dad's taken, little snippets of the best parts in his journey, and now, it's all coming together in a bottle, and that's why, it's, as you alluded to, wines. It's all about the story, everything behind it, that leads to an amazing product in the bottle in the end.
The wines, when released, are cause for great excitement, and with a winemaker, there's also a huge amount of pride. Was that something you and your siblings and your mum shared? A brand new Kevin Arnold wine is released, and the whole family lights up with that collective excitement?
Yeah, sure. It's I must say it was new to us, the project they're working on. They kept it kind of under wraps, and I think they wanted it to be released, unbeknownst to everyone. And I think it really is something special. It's slowly getting out there, and I think that's the kind of the right way to do it. You don't want to rush it, and by word of mouth, that's the best way to market it, and for people to sample it themselves. And I think it's such a special brand, and it's very close to all our hearts. So yeah, it's really amazing.
And made by a special man. I'm not the only one who thinks so. Nick Furness is watching on YouTube at the moment. A remarkable gentleman, always has time for all, young and old. Put Rust and Freda on the map, amongst other places in this storied career, which we'll go back to in a second. I think we have Robbie in. He's just shot 63 for the third time this week, and it's only Monday. Robbie, lovely to have you on the show, and welcome on. I'll ask you a similar question to the one I put to Nadine. Do you remember your first wine memories, your first experience with wine as a young member of the Arnold family?
Good afternoon, Dan. I hope everyone's doing well, and thank you. It was a fantastic round this afternoon. But to answer your question, I've actually got to go take a few steps back and say that being born in a wine vat and a wine barrel, your lungs become quite used to this stuff, and it seemed to hold me in good stead in a small little res called Simmonsburg when we were asked to be the car guards at a certain wine farm for the harvest function, and we parked the cars pretty well, but we drank a little bit too much. And I think maybe to echo, I didn't hear all of what my siblings said, but perhaps to echo what everyone said in some ways so far, is that wine has always been the catalyst for something really meaningful. And I think we're very fortunate to have that as context in our family. I remember sitting as a kid on a wine barrel that had my name, as a toddler, and my dad had made these vintages for us to enjoy one day when we were 21 at our 21st. Now, how many children get the opportunity to drink that at their 21st or at their weddings? And might I say, some pretty decent wine as well. So, gratitude isn't even the start of how fortunate, how blessed we are to be able to have had all these fortunes. And Dan, you've enjoyed a lot of wine yourself and a lot of different social elements that come with it. But we've been, I think, not just the wine, but the people that we've been able to meet as a result of the wine, and the circles we've been able to mix with. I'll take another quick example, but being able to be, at the Dunhill as part of some of the wine, and to meet those kind of people that you've also had the fortune of working with. I mean, it connects you in so many incredible ways. So golf being another one of those. I've rambled on, but maybe some context there.
You've moved into the hospitality space. You've spent some time in the wine industry in various capacities. When did you start to appreciate the good-looking blonde Paul Newman type, who you called Dad, was actually seen in some pretty esteemed light by the rest of the wine industry?
Yeah, funny, Dan. When I first started my business, the introduction was always, "Have you met Kevin's son?" And I didn't argue too much because it was a bloody good foot in the door, if I might say that. But hopefully slowly but surely you start to sort of cultivate your own name. But I mean, what a sort of what footsteps to walk in, and so many people that have spoke of my old man in many different but many positive lights, and pretty daunting, I must say. But as you know, the hospitality industry is there's many sides to the hospitality industry, but funny enough, all those sides have seemed to know my dad in some shape or form, and that's a heck of a mantle to, or a thing to try and emulate, I think. So we're trying.
Well, that's a natural segue back to the start of this journey that you've taken, Kevin. Do you remember the very first wine that you produced that you were able to put your name to? And if so, what was it?
Yeah, Dan, it goes back a long time, but I'll never forget it because I didn't grow up in the Cape, but I came to study at Stellenbosch, and I ended up at Elsenburg Agricultural College, and they wouldn't let me make wine because I didn't come from the wine region. but it took me a year or so before I convinced those in charge to give me a shot. And yes, the first vintage came from the Elsenburg cellar. It was a combination of different white varieties. The early days of what led to the industry eventually in the Swartland Revolution was all at Elsenburg. And there was actually a grape called Chanel. So strangely enough, we've never heard of it again. But we were responsible for making all the experimental wines for the professors at the university who created all these amazing blends of varietal blends, planted them, and then see if the wine was worth anything. But that was in 1970, the 77, 78. Those are the years when I started making wine. So I think this would have been my 46th vintage, including the first year at Elsenburg.
It's an incredible track record, and in 46 vintages, the sheer volume of wine produced makes my next question, I suspect, almost impossible to answer, which is not going to stop me from asking it. Are you able to pick over those years a handful of the wines you've made that you feel just had something magical about them?
Yeah, I suppose it's a bit like your children. You'll never forget them. And the one thing about wine, I think you learn is that not sure if there's any other profession like that, but if you make something and you put your name to it, that wine lives with you for the rest of your life. So 1981 was the launch of the first Delham Grand Reserve, and that was pretty daunting because Delham was predominantly known for white wine with a very strong Germanic background, and we wanted to take on Yellow's Rubicon, and I think Delham Grand Reserve did exactly that. So before there were any sort of iconic wines, it became one of the sort of cult wines of the 80s in South Africa. And then the next one was, I loved working at Russ and Freda. The Engelbrecht family was just amazing. And they gave me the opportunity of blending 3 varieties that hadn't been done before. So the Russ and Freda estate first bottling was 1986, which on a Saturday morning before Jannie went to Newlands, we made a Cabernet Merlot blend. So that was the first release. But in 1988, which is the birth year of Nadine, I put together the first Russ and Freda estate that had Cabernet, Shiraz, and Merlot. And that was also a very symbolic year and a very symbolic wine that I think has gone on to make a great name in the industry in terms of its consistency and style. And then, beyond that, the more current vintages, I'm looking to, believe it or not, 2022. Made a couple of barrels this year, and I'm pretty confident that eventually when it gets to bottle, it's going to be special. So the watershed year, 2022 for us, the Arnold family, the launch of the family label, and with some little exciting nuances to come still in terms of site-specific and the incredible goodwill of fellow winemakers who've offered me opportunities and space, vineyards, and it's just amazing. So I think 2022, I'm really looking forward to eventually have something in a bottle that's going to be particularly proud of.
I don't think that will come as any surprise, nor is it any surprise that everybody was wanting to help and get behind you after everything you've done and contributed to the wine industry for so long, Kevin, which takes us to the wine we have with us this evening. And let's go into the first of those. It has the names, there we go, Robert, Lloyd, and Nadine, which Kevin tells me is in order of his favorite children. So there he has them on the list. Cape Agulhas Sauvignon Blanc. This is the first wine. Introduce it to me, Kevin, if you will. Where is it from, and why the decision to go with this particular wine?
Yeah, well, I mean, we started off with two wines from Stellenbosch. I think that was always going to be the case. But we moved to Hermanus in May, and there's such amazing, talented winemakers up in the Hemelade Valley and the Gullis coastline. And I was out there tasting, and I found 2 incredible base wines, a Sauvignon Blanc and a Semillon. And obviously got chatting to the team, the owners, and the winemaker, and asked them if I could source part of that. And they agreed to that, and so we bottled a Semillon blend, 2022 from the Cape Agulhas region. And I must say, I feel proud to at least have one wine from this region, which is now I've made our home, and I'm excited about it. It's kind of more in a Bordeaux white style. If you think of Margaux Pavillon Blanc, and Lynch Barge also released a white blend, which I tasted recently with some of my friends in Stellenbosch. And yeah, this is something all about a sense of place. I think wine is always about that. It's about the people behind it, and perfectly balanced, in my opinion. I would never blend or bottle something that I didn't absolutely believe 100% in. So a Sauvignon, I think it's 85 Sauvignon and 15 Semillon, almost ready to go out on our site. The other two wines are currently ready to ship.
Okay, the decision to make it, I think you've given us rather nicely. What about both the fun and the challenge, starting something new and the excitement around that, but also the challenge? Are there still 46 vintages in? Any nerves, any uncertainty as you go into the wine space, or are you sufficiently relaxed after almost half a century?
What do they say? You don't raise your bet at 50. But I guess the kids don't know that Robert, Lloyd, and Nadine, but I put their names on the label because it's not going to be long when they're going to have to take over. So I think there are another 46 vintages, but I'll just be the drinking partner in the show. But no, it's all about longevity. And I think at the end of the day, the exciting thing about South Africa is, I've always said, and I've had a lot of young guys come through the ranks, and so proud of where they've gone on to make great wines and great names for themselves. I think we have to live with the philosophy in South Africa. We still haven't made our best. And I believe in that every day. So if I've gotten a few more shots at it, this year I had to kind of work differently, but from next year on, it's going to be from the soil to the cellar and eventually to the bottle. And I'll look at that. So I'd love to have a few more shots at doing that. I've always learned from guys like Neil Ellis and Jan Boland. Once it's in your blood, it's in your blood. You know, they might put us down with a transfusion going, but we'll still be in the wine business.
Well, if it's in the blood, does that extend to the next generation? Nadine, do you see yourself picking up the mantle and perhaps making this wine in due course?
Well, anything's possible, Dan. I think that's one thing that's been instilled in all of us, and I think it's also it's very evident in the way you can hear that my dad has been speaking. I think he's got the ability to really inspire people to do things that I think they've never really even imagined that they could do before. So I wouldn't completely rule it out. Right now, it's maybe not the focus, but I would love to get more involved, and who knows, maybe there's an MCC on the cards in the future. That would be my pick.
Well, let's get some thoughts on the wine. Lloyd, the Sauvignon Blanc, what's your take on this Sauvignon with just a touch of Semillon?
I briefly tasted it on the weekend, and yeah, beautiful light crispness, great summer wine, and I think it's going to be very popular with the people. So yeah, only good things to say about it, obviously.
How much in terms of the family business? How much allocation do the children get before your dad starts making you pay for the stuff?
Well, we've been lucky so far. There've been a couple of handouts, so we've got a couple of cases. But yeah, I think it's reaching a tipping point now where he's going to start saying, "Look, guys, you can get a discount, but yeah, some sort of money has to exchange hands." So yeah, I think it's on the tipping point.
3 very successful kids. Charge them full price, Kevin. They can all afford it. Robbie, your take on the wine. You spend a lot of time in the hospitality industry. We're not getting in your 4 or 5 rounds of golf a week. What are your thoughts on the white?
Yeah, Dan, I just really enjoy the palatability of it. I think it's something you can enjoy in many different environments, many different contexts. I just want to take a step back and also just the name around the family. I want to sort of submit a notion, I suppose, and that is, of course, it takes a great winemaker to make a wine, but I also think it takes a great family to make a wine, and that's why I love the name so much, because I think we've been very fortunate. We're a unique family, but we've always been in very strong support of each other, and I think that's just very evident. And I think the style of wine my dad's always made, which has been very inclusive, very being very hospitable, I guess. And I think that's something which really transcends all of these expressions of wine. So, I think, I've always loved my dad's philosophy also on wine must live with food. And I think all of these wines will again be a representation of that you can enjoy it with some great food. And, that's the inclusive element that is so strong in all of these different expressions.
And that's the benefit of that Semillon added to the Sauvignon Blanc, just giving it that bit of extra structure and that bit of extra balance, and calming some of the acid of the Sauvignon Blanc down to present you with a lovely food wine, which is something that goes for the second of them. Again, it is a tribute to three wonderful kids, but this time it's off to Stellenbosch in search of some Chenin Blanc. So back on home turf, so to speak. Where's this wine from? What prompted your choice of this selection, Kevin?
Yeah, well, I think Chenin, when I was the winemaker at Delheim, we almost our entire range was dominated by Chenin Blanc, and in those days nobody spoke about bush vines and old vines, and yet we lived with them. So I had the incredible privilege as a young winemaker to work with some of the oldest vineyards in Stellenbosch. So after a sojourn to Rustenburg, where there were no whites made, only reds, and then back to Waterford, where on the Helderberg it's predominantly red farm, I decided to start sort of reawakening my enthusiasm about Chenin. And I had been tasting different parcels of vineyards that had been vinified in various Stellenbosch cellars for the last 2 or 3 vintages. And I came across this particular vintage, or should I say vineyard site. It's high up on the Porkerdry Hills, overlooking False Bay. And when I asked the winemaker if I could have a look at various parcels to make my own blend, I was luckily given that opportunity to look at it. And so he gave me a number of wines in a blind tasting. And when I identified the same parcel and the same vineyard again for the second year in a row, I knew that I was onto the right thing. So this is a blend of 2 old vine vineyards in Stellenbosch, high up on the Porkerdry. And all I wanted was that incredible fruit. I often refer to Chenin Blanc as when you break open a nice chilled apricot and you smell that pip. When I get that in Chenin, then I'm excited. And that's all I try to do. I try to blend it in such a way, 2 vineyards together, to get that lovely sort of fresh fruit-driven character from Chenin. Obviously, there's no oak involved. But on the mouthfeel and the texture, the great thing about Chenin, it's one of the nicest grapes to eat. And I've always remembered that in winemaking. So if you can get that expression in the bottle, then I think you're onto a good thing. And I feel totally confident and very, very happy with the Chenin from Stellenbosch.
All right, tasting notes from the daughter of the man behind it, Nadine. This particular Chenin, what do you make of it?
Yeah, I mean, we as I think my brothers mentioned, we were fortunate enough to be one of the first to try it, and I think as daunting as it is to try something with your name on it, it's also incredibly gratifying. So delicious, easy drinking wine. It's one of those things that from the minute I tasted it, I was just so proud of it. I wanted to kind of just go and share it, and that's exactly what I did. So I think we maybe jumped the gun on that one, Dad. Sorry, but we did let the cat out the bag and shared it immediately with all our friends, and hopefully that'll be a testament to what's about to come. So there's a lot of excitement around it, and all I can say is we look forward to see what's coming next.
Lloyd, has there ever been an awkward moment where you've had to try a wine and actually confessed to your dad, I don't really like this one?
Yeah, Dan, there is a lot of pressure there, because literally every time we see him or go visit them, it's you get about 3 or 4 flights that you have to taste, and he's kind of sitting right there, so a lot of pressure. But this Chenin, I'm predominantly a red wine man myself, and that's my go-to. But the Chenin really surprised me. It's almost matured slightly since it's been bottled. A nice level of acidity, nice full bodiness, and you get that typical tropical fruits, coming through those aromas. So I actually really, really enjoy the Chenin. And yeah, I can't really fault it. So yeah, it hasn't been, there haven't been any real bad ones this far, which is great.
And Robbie, your take on the Chenin Blanc?
Well, Dan, I can't really add too much other than to say I think I'm the largest supporter in terms of cases bought so far. So I suppose I'm a big fan. I love Chenin, and I think it's, yeah, we make such beautiful Chenins in this country, and I hope that they get celebrated more and more. I certainly am celebrating this one not as we speak, because I'm in the car. That would be untoward. But I certainly will be celebrating with one this evening.
Well, let's move on to the third and final wine. And this is the wine that's probably going to get the most questions asked of you, Kevin, as the man who is synonymous with Shiraz. It's still, people say Kevin Arnold, Kevin Arnold Shiraz. And there is some here, but this is a combination. You've got a red blend here. How hard did you have to think to decide on what to do? And was it just a very conscious decision to make something that wasn't Shiraz and to do something a bit different?
Yeah, Dan, I guess Shiraz is always going to be in the blood one way or another. It's just that incredible food wine. So what I was looking for, because my real excitement about red wine in Stellenbosch going forward is a lot of the varieties that I think historically weren't grown there, but with all the drought years, they've come to the fore. So grape like Mourvedre, obviously things like Sangiovese, but Grenache. Grenache planted in the most poorest and most difficult stony soils produces some of the most incredible wines. And so I was fortunate enough to go on my journey of searching for these different components. I found Grenache from Stellenbosch and a little bit from Pekingese Kloof in the one particular cellar. Mourvedre, which I'm always a huge fan of, especially in the Stellenbosch and the Heidelberg area. And then obviously Shiraz. So I created a GMS, a Grenache Mourvedre Shiraz blend. So the Grenache is dominated, almost 60% in the blend, but it's not one of those sort of soft textures Grenaches. It's more a little bit, I wouldn't say aggressive, but it's got that incredible spice-driven character. And for a 2019, which is a great vintage across the board, I kind of gave it the backbone with the Mourvedre, and then I just spiced it up a little bit more with some younger Shiraz. So all in all, 2019 GMS. This is the kind of wine. This is my go-to red wine. It's got to convince you, obviously on the aroma, but more importantly, the convincing comes on the mid palate. So when it has an entry, it's dry entry. It's got those lovely tannin structures that are not harsh, not green, but dry. Can sometimes be a little bit dusty, but at the end of the day, it's all about the length of finish. And this is what I find in this wine. So it's still, in my opinion, showing a little youthfulness as a 2019, but that's the style. And your question about Shiraz, watch this space.
I didn't think we were ever going to have to wait too long for that. Andrew Woolgar watching from over in America. Great show as always, Dan. These wines demonstrate the amazing diversity in the wine industry. The creators behind them. Would be nice to see these end up in the US market one day. Well, you never know. Maybe, Andrew, you might be the person to take them over there. And Grant Sauls, who was very generous in our Dan Really Likes Wine auction recently. What a legend. Can't get enough of the gem and the Waterford wines. Looking forward to his new wines. Well, you should do, Grant, because you are in for a treat. Before we wrap up the show, I want to drop back the tree. Let's kick off this time with you, Robin. Just the chance to give a little tribute to this extraordinary man that we all call winemaker, fantastic, but you guys know as Dad. What would your tribute to Kevin Arnold, the dad, as much as the winemaker, be?
Yeah, thanks, Dan. Lastly, just again, thanks for the opportunity to share this story today. I think in closing, from me, it's about being incredibly successful while being amazingly humble at the same time. It's about having the small gate to the grand crescendo, not the other way around. And that's always been a metaphor for me in every place my dad has created. You'll notice that there is a crescendo, not a start with big and then end with a lack of promise. And whether it's been a successful chapter or a slightly sadder chapter or whatever it's been, the resilience that has been shown to stay the course, to maintain the principles that have created the success have always been there, and that consistency is something that I immensely respect. It's so easy for us to fall off those principles when things become a little bit difficult, and I think you have someone here who has stuck to their principles regardless, and that's, to me, dare I say, is greatness.
Lloyd, a similar question, and speaking from the heart and not from the desire to get a slightly greater discount on those next few cases of wine, a few words on this incredible man the South African wine industry has been so fortunate to have so many years.
Yeah, Dan, I think as Rob said, it's I think humble is a characteristic that kind of goes across the board. You really see what kind of person he is within the wine industry when you attend these, the many tastings and shows we did. Just how people approach him and speak to him and kind of appreciate his presence, and it really, standing on the outside looking in, it really makes you, as one of the kids, such a proud person. He's like a superhero in the wine industry, basically. And you can only, he's one of the most iconic winemakers in South Africa and parts of the world. Which, you always say when you're a kid, you're proud of your father because you can do this and this and this. And we really were in that situation because he was the best in his field in certain instances, and that's all you can ask for as a little boy growing up. So hopefully that can give me some more free wine.
Some wonderful words from a very proud son. Let's head over to an equally proud daughter. And just in conclusion, Nadine, a few thoughts on your dad?
Yeah, I mean, I really don't think I can add much more to that. I think we've all pretty much echoed the same things today. I think that my wish for my dad now is really just to enjoy the fruits of the labor. I think he's really been, he's been iconic in his field, and he's had so much success, and we've all witnessed that. And now's a time where I hope that he can look back. I'm not saying there's any slowing down, because I don't think that's possible for him, but really just enjoy what he's created and what all of us are witnessing today. I hope that we can see that and that he can really feel how proud we all are of him.
If you wondered at all why there was such a focus on the family, on the labels, on the essence, the philosophy of Kevin Arnold, I think that has been answered expertly by three very proud and devoted children. I think, Kevin, in closing, and this is a chance for you to beam happily and set aside the standard humility for just a moment. You've got three children who clearly, as much as you've made amazing wine over the years, I think these are your three real triumphs.
Yeah, absolutely, Dan. It's what do they say? The good vintages and the bad vintages. But sometimes it skips a generation. So I think the kids luckily inherited everything from their mother. I was just in the cellar. So it's really incredibly proud moment to be a part of a brand called The Family, and to know that the generation continuity of the generations is what it's about. And it's just a humble beginning, but putting something in place, I think, is really what it's all about. So it would not be possible if it wasn't for the combination of Heather, my wife, who I think instilled in the children the very essence of what life's about. The discipline, the continuity, the importance of family life. And then I think what wine brings to many families is what I call the table. I think meals and time spent around the table with food and wine are the very glue in life today. And as a winemaker, we were fortunate enough to grow up with it. And if we could have shared that with our family, which I believe we have, but there has to be a further glue in every family too, and that's undoubtedly Heather in our instance. So she's kept us together. She's kept us in the short and narrow. But few people know that her talent really lies in what you see in packaging. And many a wine that I was involved in, she was involved in the packaging. And I think this is her idea, the Robert, Lloyd, and Nadine. And I think a true tribute to her She never wants to be in the limelight, but her strength and her energy and her support has come out today. So it's not just about the three names and myself being responsible for the production. The very essence of it is her talent and ability to create something. So this brand is as much her as it is the rest of us.
It's a brand I think we're all now itching to get more of and to enjoy the latest chapter of this phenomenal South African wine story. The wines aren't available in Pick n Pay just yet, but I'm sure they won't be too long. But a quick look online and you'll be able to find them before they sell out, or the kids drink them all, which is probably the more likely eventuality. But it's only just beginning. And Kevin, I think we're going to be seeing a lot more of you with this story, having you back on the show again soon as more wines come out. And you told us to watch this space for a Shiraz. We certainly will. But until then, be drinking the ones that are out very happily and continuing to revel in the fact that 46 vintages in, you're still giving us some extraordinarily authentic and enjoyable South African wine. So, Kevin, thank you for being back on the show. And Lloyd, Nadine, Rob, thank you very much for making your respective debuts. Try and leave your dad a little of the wine. And thanks for being part of not just the show, but also a wonderful South African wine story and for sharing it with us this evening.
Thanks,
Cheers.
Dan.
Thanks, Dan.
Thanks,
Thank you, Dan. Great privilege to be with you again. Thank you.
Oh, there we go. A dear friend of mine in Kevin Arnold, just a pillar of the South African wine industry, together with Nadine, with Lloyd, and with Robbie, making up the Arnold family wines that are now available, just kicking off, but already starting to make some waves. Look out for more information on them when they start coming out in even greater droves early next year. And that does it for me. I have a stage to go and jump onto to support Dean Burmester and Justin Walters, and I'll be at golf again on Thursday as our show comes to you live from the Investec South African Open, and we'll be joining Ken Forrester, we'll be joining Lavanier, be joining Kleiner Zalzer, Stellenbosch Hills, I think we'll be there as well, and we'll be tasting some wine, meeting some winemakers, and possibly hitting a golf ball or two as well. For now, though, huge thank you to the Arnold family, and congratulations on another great chapter in one of the great families of South African wine. This is Dan Really Likes Wine, presented by Pick n Pay. We'll see you again on Thursday evening at the Investec South African Open. Goodbye. To join the Pick n Pay Wine Club, simply SMS your smart shopper number to 36775. It's absolutely free, and you'll get for yourself 3 times the smart shopper points on every bottle of wine bought. You'll also get a 20% discount on 10 different wines each month, a 25% discount on a case of wine, and a Magnum, some terrific competitions and invitations to awesome events.